Steve Aquario from NYSAC and Albany County Executive Dan McCoy, thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So we are talking about the numbers today. It is all about revenue. It's all about spending, this big crisis the state is in. Steve, I want to start with you. The state itself is facing a $14 billion deficit just over the next year. I know it's going to vary by county, but what does it look like for counties across the state in terms of their financial crisis?
Well, it's a fragile economy right now. Sales tax took a dramatic hit almost as soon as the public health crisis hit the state of New York and hit the counties. It was an economic crisis. And so what we've been able to track in the past 6 months or so and tabulate and do some modeling right now is we are forecasting about a $9 billion hit to the city of New York and $4.5 billion to the rest of the counties around the state. So the 57 counties, we're projecting around $4.5 billion, and the city of New York, $9 billion. That's a lot of money.
That is too much. I can't even think of that much money.
And the suddenness in which it occurred. If we look at the Great Recession, it took a couple of years to get into that situation in 2008 and 2009. This happened in a matter of months. For us to have this sudden of an economic impact in this state, and for our viewers and people, New Yorkers listening to this show or watching this show or understanding these numbers, it's real. This is service delivery that's impacted. These are programs and services that affect people. It's not just a theoretical number. This is a service. This is a job to someone or a service to someone.
So the state is planning cuts of up to 20% for localities, counties included. I shouldn't say planning, may or may not happen. Planning is probably the right word, but may or may not happen. Where is that going to hit hardest in counties in terms of the services that they provide to people? Because people may not know that counties do quite a bit for people in their communities.
Well, is it equitable? That's the argument. This is arguably going to hit the most vulnerable of our citizens, our older adults, our seniors who deserve meals, our veterans programs, our youth. In the midst of a pandemic, the thought, Dan, of cutting 20% in local public health funding, it just makes absolutely zero sense to even consider that as an option. After all Dan McCoy did as the leader of Albany County and the county executives through the entire pandemic, only to come out of this public health crisis to be slapped across the face and told, yeah, we're going to cut you 20% now. And all of these programs, social service programs, human service programs, folks that affect disadvantaged communities at a time when they could least afford it. Now we need to be providing more services, not reduce those services.
So let's look ahead to filling the budget gap. County Executive McCoy, NYSAC put together a report that outlines some ideas for filling the state's budget gap in terms of helping counties out, helping the state out. One that struck me and I think would be interesting for a lot of viewers is the legalization of marijuana. And that's something that we've talked about for years now here in Albany County. It's, I think, especially important because we're right across the border from Massachusetts, where people are going to get their marijuana if they are to use it, and then coming back here. So we're not getting that tax revenue. Talk to me about if it was legalized here, what it would look like in terms of the money side of it. Would it bring a lot of revenue to counties? Is it I guess, a long-term solution?
It is a solution. It's one that we pushed last year at NYSAC, and we got into debates, and I know you look at the good side and the bad side, but you bring up the excellent point. It's being done by our neighbors.
Right.
And if you look at the restaurants and little towns where these areas where they popped up, they went up 110% in business alone. So our residents of New York State are already traveling out of the state to get this. So to bring it back into Albany County alone is a game changer. Like, if the governor cuts 20% out of all of our programs across Albany County alone, that's a $20 million hit on top of the $30 million I'm probably in the hole already. So I'm looking at a $50 million deficit. It's a game changer. It can help with some programs or education where, being a county executive, in the suburbs, all the schools are open. But the inner city schools where that need the most services, we have uptick in crime in the city of Albany up 240%, the highest city in the state of New York, and yet now these kids are at home. So to address issues like that this could be something that could offset that, to get the money where it needs to be, to help inner city kids out, to have a different outcome in life. And that outcome in life is not going to change if we continue to cut across the board. And I know it's easy for me to say that, but when you're looking at I think you just said $14 billion deficit in the state of New York. Yeah, it's
crazy.
People don't realize the effect, the health crisis that we're in, and the economy crisis that we're in. And I'm scared for next year. I'm more scared for 2022 because we're going to see hotels not open up, restaurants not open up, people lose their jobs, and it's going to be that ripple effect. And I can tell you as a county executive, there's so many great programs that I don't want to cut back. But again, if I'm not getting 20%, how do I do that? I was just talking to my health commissioner, and there's a 100% grant funded position, and we just hired somebody, and I'm not filling it at that salary. And I'm like, we're probably going to lose 20%. I have to brace for what I can brace for, because going forward, if we lose that revenue, how do I continue to do the services people are entitled to?
So let's zoom out. In the broader picture, there's a lot of less exciting, I guess, revenue raisers than marijuana, and obviously this all has an impact, as you were saying. What are some of those ideas to get money to counties? Because, like you said, there are two options. You can either get money from somewhere else, or you have to cut spending. And I don't think anybody wants to cut spending. So if it's not coming from the federal government, and is there anything the state could do, like authorize higher sales taxes, for example?
We have to look at spending, though. We have to. The state of New York has to look at its spending. Is it spending more than it's taking in revenue? If that happens at the county level, we have to cut services.
Right.
If we're not collecting enough in revenue, we have to cut services. I think the state of New York has to do the same thing. Regardless of what happens with our economy here, if the federal government invests in state and local governments' revenue losses, which they should. But in the meantime, we have to look at state spending, and we have to look at revenues. What are they? What are the types of revenue? You mentioned sales tax. We have to be mindful. I was talking to somebody earlier today about consumer spending. Can the consumer afford more taxes?
Right.
We have to be cognizant of the unemployed, the underemployed. How much can people afford? We have two forms of revenue at the county level: property and sales tax. That's how we operate government. So we have to look at additional revenues like 911 surcharges. We have Airbnb and short-term rentals that are going on where we're not collecting sales taxes. We're not collecting occupancy taxes. That's revenue that's owed to the people, to the taxpayers, and we need to begin to collect those other forms of revenue. So we have to talk about revenue. We have to work with our state legislature, with our governor, to figure out what can be cut as far as services and what revenue can we put into the mix.
County Executive, last word. When does the clock run out on this? Obviously, you need the money as soon as possible, but when does it become crunch time?
I have literally probably 14 days. I got to start to deliver my budget. I'm putting it together now. And it's hard. You don't have a crystal ball. You try to predict what the budget's going to look like. So if, not knowing truly if the governor's going to take any of the ideas that NYSAC has shared, as us as counties, not just county executives, but county managers across the state, to say, here in a partnership, we can do this and work better together and get the Senate and Assembly on board and stop passing it all down to us. We can get through it, but my problem is this: I have to deliver the budget. It's going to have to go, then it goes to my legislature, and we're going to have to work through this. And unfortunately, I'm trying to avoid layoffs, trying to predict how much funding I've already lost and what we're going to lose next year. So the quicker we all get together and try to agree, which seems to be impossible, take party politics aside. I don't care what party you are. We need to work for the people. We're there to work for the people. We represent the same people, and the only way we're going to get this done is truly coming together as one and showing them that we can get this done for the people of New York State.
All right, well, we will see what happens. Albany County Executive Dan McCoy, Steve Aquario from NYSAC, thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.